Okay, well, let's start. So, hey, thanks for being here today. My name is Bruce Waller. I work for Armstrong Relocation and Companies. And I was actually thinking, come on in. Come on, Judy. So I actually came in last night real late from Dallas last night. I had a conference in Dallas yesterday. So I got here last night about 10 o'clock and got into my hotel. And I went up and changed everything, and I forgot I needed my power cord, so I went back down to get my power cord out of my car. And I got to the lobby, and there were like 50 police in the lobby. And there were like police cars everywhere. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And the police officer comes up to me, and he says, are you staying here, sir? And I said, yes, I'm staying on the 14th floor. And he said, well, you need to, probably go back up or secure the facility. I'm like, you're securing the facility? And so I said, I just wanted to get my power cord. He's like, okay, you know what, I can walk you out there. So I walk out there to get the power cord, and I get my power cord, and the police officer is right there, and he walks me right back in. I guarantee there were 50 police cars in the parking lot. I was like, man, this is a memorable moment. And so anyway, come to find out, I found out this morning that a young man had shot his uncle, and he ran from the building next door and had run through the lobby of the hotel, and that's why they were securing the facility. And so anyway, so that's like going to be a takeaway for me when I get back home. And so I'm hoping that you get a takeaway today that's as memorable as that. So anyway, I'm glad to be here. I mean, I was thinking, man, what if I would have been in the lobby when that guy's like running through? That'd been just awful. So anyway, glad to be here. And I wanted to, a great opportunity to share. I had actually published a book a couple of years ago, and it's called Find Your Lane. And this book was written really with a different, with a kind of a career GPS mindset, right? And so when I wrote this book, I wrote it, it's really my story. And I wanted to share just some of the struggles and challenges that I went through over the years, and hoping that it would encourage some people. And my hope today is that some of the strategies, come on in. Some of the strategies that I share today will do one of a couple things, right? So either one, it will validate that, hey, I'm in the lane I want to be in, and I'm just going to keep going in this direction. Or number two, it will maybe inspire you to maybe pull over and think of looking at from a different lens and maybe shift lanes a little bit. And so I'm going to share some of those strategies today. But what I do is I work for a company called Armstrong Relocation. We help companies when they need to relocate talent. So you go out there and you recruit the candidate, and then they sign the offer letter, and if they're, of course, from out of the area and they need to relocate, we help them move their household goods. And so Find Your Lane is really about everybody has a different way of achieving success, right? And so you see a lot of different people doing things a little bit differently. You have to just find what works best for you. And like in relocation, companies will do usually one of three things. So either one, they'll give the employee or the candidate money. Say, here's $5,000, here's $10,000, we'll see you at destination. Or two, they'll say, hey, here's some money, and we're going to move your household goods, and then we help those candidates. Or number three, they'll fully outsource the full door-to-door comprehensive services, which is the home sale and all of that. And so that's what I do. But today what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about if we're going to find talent, if we're going to find the best talent, we need to be the best, right? And so think about, what is important, and it's all about, really, it's about purpose. It's about the why, and it's about really thinking things through an intentional point of view. I know that our speaker this morning talked about intentionality. And so as we think through a lot of these things, we need to be intentional about everything we do. When I think about purpose, I think about our mission, right? Why are we doing this? Now, also, you need to think from the standpoint of when we're recruiting, the person you're recruiting, you need to kind of paint that picture of purpose for them as well, right? What's important to that candidate? It may not be just more than, it may not just be money. It see, where they're going. I mean, there's so many different things that can be part of that. So think of it from an intentionality perspective. I love this quote. If you want to have more, you have to become more. And so we're going to talk about some different strategies on becoming more as leaders in our industry today. So I love this quote. Everybody watch The Office? I mean, this guy is great, right? So we generally change ourselves from one of two reasons, either inspiration or desperation. And typically when you're out trying to find talent, they're going to move many times because they're inspired by like Whole Foods. I mean, was that incredible? I mean, when they gave that presentation today, you're like, oh my gosh, this is a great company. So they're inspired and they want to move and make that change. Or they are just so desperate. They cannot stand their boss. They cannot stand their environment or their situation, and they're ready to move. And typically, so what we need to do is we need to inspire them, right? And we can all do that. We have an opportunity to do that. So here's the agenda today. So when I wrote the book, Find Your Lane, I gave it a driving theme. And so this has a driving theme to it. We're going to talk about these 5 things. We're going to talk about, number 1, the importance of maintaining our vehicles, and that is investing in ourselves. We need to take care of ourselves. Number 2, we're going to plan our roadmap, and we're going to talk about the importance of planning and setting goals and being, like what we talked about before, purposeful, intentional, planning ahead. And number 3, we're going to talk about probably I think the most important thing we should be thinking about as professionals, and that is using the carpool lane, and that is the importance of expanding your network, right? It's all about investing in people, and we're going to talk about that. And then we'll touch on the importance of, we've heard a lot about employment branding, so there's also the importance of personal branding. So we're going to talk about a little bit displaying a strong brand, and then lastly, of course, serving. We heard Julian talk about that today. I just love that. Love to serve, and so we're going to talk about that. So adding value is the most important thing we can do in any job. Any job. We've got to find ways to continue adding value. And again, think about your vehicle, right? How do you fuel up every day? How do you fuel up? And so there's many ways you can fuel up. I've talked to a couple of people today about, exercising, I don't like to exercise, but I do exercise because I know when I get done, it makes me, my mind is clear. And many times though, I'll kind of fall off my pattern. I'll need to have a challenge. So challenges are always good. Volunteering is good. I get fueled up by volunteering. I volunteer with the North Texas Relocation Professionals. I volunteer with the Dallas HR SHRM chapter in Dallas. I serve on the board there, and I'm part of the Texas SHRM State Council as well. So I get fueled up by volunteering. Reading, I'm going to share a few books that I think might be helpful, but I mean, if you don't like to read, there's Audible. And of course, podcasts. I mean, anybody listen to Julian's podcast? Mm-hmm. It's excellent. Check it out. But podcasts, I mean, there's some great podcasts out there. Just continuous learning. We've got to keep getting better as professionals. So here's a few books. I love this quote. Your success over the next 5 years, it truly will be determined by the books you read and the people you meet. It's about the people. We've got to keep going. And many times, in my opinion, books give you ideas to have conversation. I love this, the one in red, The Talent Fix. Anybody ever heard of Tim Sackett? Raise your hand if you heard of Tim Sackett, right? That is a great book, so definitely check that out. Here's some other books. Of course, I like Strength Finders. I think it's important that the self-awareness is more important than ever today. We need to be self-aware of our strengths and really play to those strengths. So those are some books to kind of check out. I love Brene Brown's book, Dare to Lead, and I'll tell you that is about the importance of vulnerability and having brave conversations. And so, anyway, some books to check out. So how do you know if you're low on fuel? Well, you take the mirror test. So I was interviewing a CEO in Oklahoma City, and he was telling me one of the things he does every day on a daily routine. He looks in the mirror and he says, hey, am I better than I was? Am I better today than yesterday? Am I growing or shrinking? am I engaged or disengaged? And that's how he knows he needs to continue to fuel up. So you just got to develop a system, right? And so how many of you have to-do lists? Yeah, we all have them, right? I mean, some of them are so infatuated that we basically will write down our to-do list, we'll go do something, we'll think, oh my gosh, I forgot to put that on my to-do list. We'll come back and we'll write it in, then we'll mark it off to feel good. Who's with me, right? Okay. So you gotta have a system. There's a guy named Andrew Carnegie, of course, How to Win Friends and Influence People, right? And so one of the things he talks about in his book, I love this part, he talks about how he embossed on the side of his briefcase the words AFAR. And that stands for always ask for a referral. So that's how we get candidates many times, right? We're asking for referrals. We've got to have a system. We have to have a system in place for whatever we do. So there's another book out called Atomic Habits, and it says people don't rise to their level of their goals, they fall to the level of their systems in place, right? So just because you put a goal doesn't mean you're going to hit it unless you put a system in place that will allow you to get to that. So develop a system. I put on there, what's your MVP? One of the things that I do every day is I have a checklist too, 20, 30 things, and I'm probably not going to get to half of them, but I put the top 3 things in my calendar every morning. And when I get done at the end of the day, if I've got those 3 things done and I didn't get the other thing, I'm cool. I'm good with that. Right? Because we're not going to get everything done. You got to keep it simple. Keep it simple. So, and Dale Carnegie, 91% of customers say they'll give referrals, and only 11% ask for it. Right? That's a system. AFAR, ask for a referral. Hey, and we're going to fail, aren't we? Right? Isn't this true? Anybody watch Shark Tank? Yeah? It's crazy. The road to success is filled with potholes of failure. I've told this story before. A couple of people may have heard it, but when I was a young manager, I was in charge of hiring, training, motivating, inspiring. I was also in charge of facilities. And so during that time, we had a parking lot that looked like that road. I mean, it was like potholes everywhere. And employees would, we were all embarrassed by it. And we needed to fix it, but it was going to cost some money. So it was on my to-do list. It just wasn't one of my MVPs. And so one day, Joe comes into the office. He says, hey, I'm doing some work down the street for Home Depot, and we're doing some asphalt work, and I think I'm going to have a little bit left over when you come fill in your potholes. I said, well, how much is that going to cost? He said, well, we can do it for like $3 a cubic foot. I was like, $3? Well, how much is that? And he said, well, based on what you have, probably about $1,000. $1,000? Man, that sounds pretty good. I was like, I have like a $2,500 approval. So, you know what, let's just do it, Joe. Let's do it. He said, okay, I'll be there on Friday. That's on Tuesday. So on Thursday, my wife calls. She says, hey, we've got to go out of town. We had something personal come up. So I was like, hey, that's fine. So I talked to my assistant. I said, Hector, Joe is going to come in on Friday, and he's going to fill these potholes. Would you, supervise that? Call me if you have any problems. He's like, yeah, boss. You bet. So on Friday, I'm driving, and at the end of the day, we get whatever done, and I never got a call. And so no news is what? Good news. Absolutely, it's good news, right? And so I told Hector, I said, hey, listen, I'll come in on Saturday morning, and I will dispatch all the crews. Don't worry about it since you did that on Friday for me. So I drive in on Saturday morning, and I drive, and I turn, and I just look, and then my eyes just get that big. I'm like, oh my gosh, we got a brand new parking lot. I'm not talking about like little chocolate chip patches everywhere. I'm talking about smooth, black, beautiful, brand new parking lot. And it had like the yellow lines, like brand new painted stripes. Even had like a handicap. It was amazing. The office looked totally different. And I had a couple of thoughts. I was like, I wonder what that costs. That was my very first thought. My second thought was, I am going to be fired. Today's my last day. I just know it. And so, anyway, long story short is that, or actually what I did was I went in and I called Joe. And I said, hey, Joe, boy, this parking lot sure looks good, but is that $1,000? He's like, oh, no. That's going to be much more than that. That's going to cost you $22,000. It's like, $22,000? No, Joe. I signed this right here. $1,000. He said, no, you didn't. You signed $3 a cubic foot. And the guy said to keep going. And I told him I had more. I was like, really? Anyway, long story short, we got it worked out. Here's what I'm saying. I didn't get fired. And it was, you remember that black cloud that just like walks around with you? That walked around me for like 6 months. I was like, oh my gosh. But we will fail. That's how we learn. Do you think I'll ever sign something like that again? You think I'm going to collaborate with somebody next time? Yeah, absolutely I am. But it's okay to fail if we learn from failing. It's okay. We talked about maintaining your vehicle. We're going to talk about the importance of a roadmap. Who are my goal setters? Yeah? How about written down goal setter? There you go. So people who write down their goals are 42% more likely to achieve them. Telling a friend increases at 78%. When I took my PHR exam in 2013, I was going to keep it quiet. I was like, I'm just going to take it, and one day I'm going to put it on my business card, and here you go. And I told a couple of people, and I was the president of Dallas HR at the time. You think everybody knew I was taking my exam? Oh, yeah. You think I studied harder? Oh, yeah. I was not going to be denied. I'm telling you. And so telling someone, so think big. What are my goals? Tell people what your goals are. Don't be afraid to do that. Hold yourself accountable. They will too. So I always like to say this, though. Before you start writing down your goals, start with the who that will lead to the do. Start thinking about who do I want to be, right? When you start thinking about your goals. Think about people that you've seen. I've seen some great speakers today. I'm like, I want to do what they do. Okay, now I need to think, okay, if I know who, now I got to figure out what do I need to do to accomplish that. Like Julian, for example, the guy works out like crazy. Can you tell? I mean, seriously. But if you want that, now all of a sudden you got to make the goal. Okay, I got to go to the gym, or I've got to do whatever. Or if I want to be a podcaster, okay, and figure all that out. So determine your who list. Include values. I can't express that enough. Make sure that you know what your values are. Write down your goals aligning with that. Identify your top MVPs, even for your goals. Pursue with maximum effort. Maximum. And then, of course, share with others. So, anybody play poker? So what happens whenever you push all that money in? You got the cards, you're feeling good, right? And then all of a sudden you're like, put your cards down, somebody else puts them down, they beat you, you're like, whoa, wait a minute, I'm gonna pull back, what would happen? Somebody would probably punch you, wouldn't they? That's how we do things in life though, right? We're like, yeah, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do that. Whoa, no, I'm not. You gotta draw the line in the sand. You gotta be all in. When I decided to write a book, I drew the line in the sand. I was all in. I was like, oh man, what did I do that for? Right? Gotta be all in. Okay, so we talked about the importance of planning. Now let's talk about one of my favorites and one of the most important things, and that is getting in the carpool lane and expanding your network. This is so important. Networking, is it hard? Networking is hard. Is networking hard at TalentNet? No. This is awesome. But most places you go, right? I remember when I went to Dallas HR for the first time, you have 250 in the luncheon. You walk in, you think everybody knows everybody. It's hard to get to know people, but it takes courage. You got to lean in. How many here have contacts on your LinkedIn that you don't know who they are? Raise your hand. Yeah, we do, right? You're like, who is that guy? See, we need to focus on not just connecting with people, we've got to build relationships. We've got to nurture relationships. So I know a lot of us connected this today in TalentNet. Now we need to take it upon ourselves to reach out and say, hey, it was great meeting you, and continuing that conversation, being purposeful and intentional about driving that relationship. So I always like to say, invest in your network. Your network is your net worth. I mean, think about that, right? Think about all the people in your network, how like fulfilling that is to have some, I mean, they're friends, right? I mean, people that you can call. I mean, I can call Craig Fisher anytime. I'm like, hey man, I need some help here, right? I mean, it's the power of the people zone. Invest in the people zone. Keep investing in that. I'm gonna give you just 7 strategies, and most of us know this, but it's good to always think about these. What are some things we can do? Well, we got to show up. We got to keep showing up. How many times you go to a networking event and on the way you're like, oh my gosh, I just feel like going home right now. Right? Right? Me too. Hey, and then you say, you know, but I'm going to show up, and you get there, and what happens? You leave and you're like, I'm so glad I went. You know what? I met somebody. I met Tara, and I've been on LinkedIn, and I met her today. This is awesome, right? And so you gotta show up. You gotta be a learner, right? Lean in, be VIP. So what is VIP? VIP is being visible, being in the moment, and just being predictable, right? You can't just show up and go stand in the corner. You gotta be visible, man. You gotta be in the moment. And predictable is about being consistent, right? Find a mentor. I had a guy reach out to me not too long ago. He's the president of a company. He says, hey, I would like for you to mentor me at Dallas HR. I'm like, I can do that. I mean, I know him. He's got great character. He's a good guy. He's wanting to do it for the right reasons. And I talked to him the other day. I said, well, why'd you reach out to him? I mean, you're the president of your company, you know? I mean, you know this stuff. And he said, when I find a mentor, I can skip like 6 steps in the process, because that mentor can introduce you to the right people quicker. You can get to the right people quicker, right? So it doesn't matter if you're a mentee or a mentor. Just be one. Just be one. Adding value, just finding ways to add value. Follow up, talked about that. Even on LinkedIn, you connect, you got to follow up. And being resourceful, right? That's how you add value. Being resourceful. I've taken tons of notes. After this, I will probably write a blog. I'll share some quotes, and I'll take some information. I'll share those with customers, business partners, because it's different, right? It's not your average. It's not selling to someone. It's just saying, hey, I was thinking about you. I was just thinking about you. Now let's talk about personal branding, right? So we know the importance of employment branding. We know the Chick-fil-A's of the world. By the way, my Uber this morning was driving a Tesla. Anybody rode in a Tesla for Uber? It's amazing. I've got video of the guy. His name's Ralph. He's like, hey, you got time? And I was like, what do you got? He said, well, let me just show you how this works. And he gets out of the car and he's doing it's an incredible experience, right? The guy. So let's talk about branding, though. The importance of a strong brand. So there's an exercise you can do. I think everybody needs to know, number one, what their brand is, because we all know what we think it is, but it's what others say it is. That's our true brand, isn't it? Right? I had somebody in accounting in my company ask me. She's like, "Why do I really need to worry about my brand?" You see, brands get all the best projects, right? Brands get the referrals, right? So somebody says, somebody has a pet to ship, they're like, me? I say, hey, I'm going to send it to Angela because I know her brand. I know she's helpful, she's caring, she can get the job done, right? She's established that brand when I think of that. And so somebody like in accounting though might, if they're proactive and they push information, versus you're always having to pull information. You're always wanting to say, hey, give it to so-and-so because she'll do a good job, right? So Jennifer McClure is somebody I follow on Twitter, and she used to be a HR leader. Now she's a consultant. She's got a workbook, and one of the exercises in the workbook had this exercise, and so I tried this, and I think it's something you might consider doing. And it's really good for engagement too, right? So you get out there and you ask you go to your different networks. So I went to Facebook, I went to LinkedIn, I went to Twitter. I said, hey, when I'm not around, you're talking to somebody about me, what are the 3 words that come to mind? Don't put more than 3 words, just 3 words. And so I did that, and I got quite a bit on Facebook. I didn't get much on Twitter. I got a lot on LinkedIn. So then I copied all of those words, and I put them in WordArt. I put them in Wordle.net. And if you have, like, say, for example, energetic, and somebody has said that more than one time, you put energetic 3 times or however many times. Because the more words of the same word, the more bold it will be. And so when I put mine in, this is the word art that came up for me. And so my big word was genuine, influencer was one, relocation. So I'm talking about what? I'm talking about relocation a lot. I'm talking about, so at the end of this, I have to look at this and I have to say to myself, okay, is that the brand I want to keep driving, or do I want to start driving a different brand, right? There's a guy that came up to me that tried this exercise from Wisconsin. He said, I was surprised by my big word. And I said, what was your big word? And he said, it was bold. And I said, well, maybe, and he does a lot of videos. I said, well, maybe people are inspired by your boldness. So now you just decide, hey, do you keep going and keep inspiring and being bold and being out there? Or do you want to try a different path? See, we drive our own brand, right? So this is a good exercise to check out. JenniferMcClure.net if you want to look up that workbook. Here's 5 strategies to drive a strong brand. Number 1, be you. There's nobody better than you. Number 2, be consistent, right? Show up every day. Many times I'll see people out there on social media and there they are. Wait, where'd they go? Oh, there they are again. Be consistent, or at a networking event, showing up. Be purposeful and make sure it's aligned with your values. That book, Dare to Lead, had some a values chart in there. Just make sure that you know what those values are. For me, it's about integrity, continuous improvement, and generosity. Those are my 3. I kind of laid those out probably 10 years ago, and I try to stay true to those. Be engaged. Listen, sharing your voice. I've heard that today at the conference about, hey, we want to hear from you. When I was 37 years old, I had just joined Armstrong, and I remember being in a room full of about, I don't know, it was probably 12, 14 salespeople. And they were talking, and I never talked. And I just wanted to hear what they had to say. I wanted to learn from them. Well, now I'm the old guy. And the young guys, I'm thinking, I want to hear what you have to say. So back then, they wanted to hear what I had to say. Yet I thought, well, no, I don't know. You got to share your voice. It's very important. Be resourceful. Align with others. And then lastly, let's talk about serving. Serving to succeed. I always talk about the importance of the 100-0 rule. Does anybody know what the 100-0 rule is? Give 100% and you expect 0. Give 100%, expect 0. I'm telling you, things will look different. So I have a picture of this journal up here. And so about 2012, 6 years ago, I'd read a story about a guy that had done something like this. So the story goes is that this guy was having challenges with his marriage. And so he was talking to another guy, and the other guy says, well, before you do anything, let me challenge you to do something. Why don't you every day for the next year, not the next 7 days, the next year, write down something good that your spouse does every day. And so anyway, a year later went by, and this guy wrote all this stuff down to give it to his wife, and he meets with this guy again. He said, well, how'd it go? He said, my life has changed. He said, oh, did it change for her because you gave her this gift? He's like, no, it changed for me because I'm now looking at the bright spots. Right? It's the yellow car syndrome, right? You buy a yellow car, you see yellow cars everywhere. So I decided I was going to do that. And so I did this for my wife in 2012. Every day I wrote down, and it's like it's a year-long process. You're like, man, I'm just going to keep on writing. And it literally works. I gave it to her thinking, she's going to love this. I gave it to her. She says, oh, this is nice. But for me, I was like, it was fulfilling. But I was thinking about this. You can do this for your job. Like, what about your company? Maybe you've lately been looking at your lens differently about your company or something in your community or whatever that is. Start writing down the positives and watch what happens. So one of the things, two things. Number one, I brought some books today, and so hopefully there's enough for everybody, because when you leave, you can have a copy. But in the book, I wrote down 10 ways to make impact when it talks about serving. And the reason why I wanted to share this today is because in the last couple of years, I've probably got more comments from this piece than any. And that is, number one, connect people with others. If you know someone and you think it's going to be a win to connect them, connect them. Sharing resources like a quote or a story. I mean, people love that. Write an article, publish an article, send someone a book. So I've done this many times, and every time I do this, I get a note back from the recipient that says, oh my gosh, that was awesome. Thank you for sending that. So unexpected. And they're excited, but you're more excited. I promise you that. Just smile. You never know what somebody's going through during that day. Nominate someone for an award. So I've done this too, where you see somebody that's just making something happen, just go nominate them for something. If you see like, hey, there's this award here, and they're on your mind, on your heart, just go do that. It's amazing. Make a donation, no matter how small. I mean, so a lot of times I'll see friends, they are advocates of certain charities. I'm going to do $5 or $10. I mean, why not? And it makes a difference, right? It makes impact. And then, of course, sending a personal note. I mean, I'm a big personal note guy. So let's just pull over and let's just review real quick the things we've talked about, right? The importance of investing in us. We've got to invest in us first. We can't help others if we don't invest in us first. And when we're investing in us, we're modeling for people, right? People see us, and hopefully they're inspired to just, you know what, they're working out, or they're doing these different things. I'm going to start doing that, right? It's modeling leadership. Modeling leadership. Planning, that's, a lot of times we're busy, aren't we? We're busy. My daughter the other day, she's like, Dad, I am so busy. She's got a little boy named Crosby. He's going to be 2 years old this month. And she has a full-time job. She's a dietitian. She's telling me how busy she is. I'm busy, Dad. I'm busy. I don't have time for all this stuff. I'm like, well, if there's one thing you got to do, what would you do? And she said that, and I said, just do that. It's fine. Just have a plan. And if you don't get it done, it'll be tomorrow. Stay in the carpool lane, man. That is one of the most important things you can do, is invest in the people zone, right? Expand your network, drive a strong brand, and serve to succeed. So I want to share this with you right here. If I were to guarantee you success for tomorrow, you'd say, give it to me, wouldn't you? Right? So I'm going to guarantee it right here. So this is from a book by John Maxwell. Anybody read John Maxwell stuff? Great leadership guru. He says 12 practices to guarantee tomorrow's success. Number one, attitude. Have a good attitude. It gives you possibilities. Number two, priorities. It gives you focus. Number three, health. It gives you strength. Number four, family gives you stability. Thinking gives you an advantage. We don't talk about that enough. Thinking. Being committed, we talked about being all in, didn't we? The finances give you options, faith give you peace, relationships give you fulfillment. Invest in people. Generosity gives you significance, values gives you direction, and growth gives you potential. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter. You can go to my website, brucewaller.com. And I don't know how many people in the room today, but I think I brought 30 books, and I think I see like almost 30 people. So if you would like a book, feel free to pick one up on your way out, and I would love to hear your feedback. And if you're not a reader of books and you want to get it online, you can certainly go do that and give somebody a book. But as a donation and as an encouragement to you, I want to give that to you today, and I appreciate your time very much. Thank you for attending.